Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Less Non-Classics. This is episode number 1508 and 91, and Doubleshot number 1485. Now, I have one DC trade, one Marvel trade. First up it is the finale for this one. We have Justice League 3001, Volume 2, Thing Falls Apart. Now, of course, Keith Giffen and James Midas are still the writers of this book, but Howard Porter has left the series. Yep, he left the series before the series could conclude, which is kind of weird. It's taken over by Scott Nolans. Also, we have additional artwork by Colleen Doran, Chris Batista, Wayne Fletcher, Andy Owens, and Timothy Green II, who was also the artist for, I believe this was the artist for Scott Snyder's run for Swamp Thing. Most of this one, we have Supergirl joining the roster Justice League because, apparently, we think Superman died, and by the end of this, she's back alive anyways. Yes, and Supergirl basically is, now the team itself is joined by Fire and Ice and Guy Gardner, joined previously. And we go on a little misadventures. Now, also, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle have disappeared. They were last seen in the previous volume for the series. Here, they're mentioned they fought some monster, and that's the last I saw of them. Yep. Then, of course, they had to team up with, of all people, apparently they go to the fight. There's apparently a version of the Legion of Superheroes who are even known as the Legion of Evil, which I thought that was kind of weird. Yes, the Legion of Evil, which is probably a play on a version of the Legion of Superheroes. And also this book, and this is quite weird, my guess is the reason why Keith Giffen included this character, because he wrote his series. Larfleeze is here. Yes, Larfleeze, aka Agent Orange, also known as the most insane lantern in the whole entire DC Comics. He is the craziest one. He's obsessed with everything. That's Larfleeze for you. And Supergirl remembers him, despite the fact that she has never fought Larfleeze before. Yeah, that's the one thing I thought was kind of weird. I mean, she knows who Larfleeze is, but I have never read a comic book where Larfleeze has met Supergirl. Maybe Superman he's met, but Supergirl? Not that I can think of, no. Also, as you can see in the cover, Supergirl's got a new costume. Yep, they gave her and Wonder Woman brand spanking new costumes. And, of course, Flash has got a costume, too. And, this actually is pretty good up until he gets to the final issue, issue 12. Basically, this book contains issues 7 to 12. Where it ends abruptly, where Flash and Robin, they had Robin on the team, Batman apparently got killed off here. So, they get transported to the past. And Larfleeze is like, I'll stick around and cancel comics, and that's the book ends. Ends on a cliffhanger. I should point out that it's ended in 2016. The resolution for this cliffhanger is not resolved until 2 years later in the final issue of Keith Giffen's run for Blue Beetle. Yes, it takes 2 years to have a conclusion to a comic book that ended in 2016. Why? I have no idea why in the world Now, in the case of why this series ended, was because of low sales. That's possible the reason why. Because this is a book that was not talked about very much at all. I mean, it had an okay start, but got better. And I do think 3001 was definitely a good improvement on it. And I definitely think... Now, this book changing its name and relaunching it, despite they keep the same creativity, I was okay with that. I was perfectly fine with that. As long as I get the same humor. At least that they don't. At least they'll have that stupid thing that happened. I think it was in Volume 2 where they called J-Line a joke. Yeah, but I think having Fire and Ice join the Justice League 3000 was great because at one point they disbanded, but they came back before the series concluded. And yeah, overall, just a really good book. And my overall final thoughts on the Justice League 3000/3001 series, because technically, if you think about it, 3001 is a continuation of 3000. I initially read the series when it came out. I believe it was back in 2014 when this came out originally. Yeah, 2014. Yes, I originally read the book because of the creative team in the book, Keith Giffen and Jay DeMatteis, because I love the JLI stuff. Oh yeah, almost forgot. Eclipso's in here, but Supergirl doesn't call him out on the fact he's Eclipso. I thought it was kind of weird. Yes. So I initially heard about this series where the plan was for DC to reunite the original JLI creative team. But Ken McGuire left the project. I tried to ask him about it, but he did not want to answer about it. It was probably due to legal reasons or the fact he had creative differences with DC. So instead, they replaced him with a very good artist, Howard Porter, which I thought was a really good idea. And that initial book lasted for approximately 15 issues. And then it got relaunched after the events of Convergence to 3001. Was the book necessary to relaunch it? I didn't have a problem with that at all. I thought it was a really neat idea. Basically, if you're going to restart it, fine. At least change the freaking title instead of just doing like, oh, a new #1 for the same exact damn series. Kind of like Marvel tends to do. This book didn't technically do that. Yeah, they changed the name of the series. They added a single number. I mean, could you kind of say it takes place in 3001? Possibly, yes. But I kind of wish Keith Giffen and Jay DeMatteis would have got a chance to actually have a proper conclusion to the series and to have an abrupt ending to the series. As for why in the world this series was actually not included with the DC relaunch, I don't know. It's actually one of about 2 or 3 comic books I can think of that were canceled at the start of DC relaunch, along with Lobo, Sinestro. I mean, there's a bunch of them. It was like Lobo, Sinestro, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. That later came back a couple years later. I'm trying to think what the books were canceled just with the relaunch. I mean, the biggest one was Catwoman. Yeah, that one I thought was kind of weird when that book ended. Yeah, as far as I can tell for that one, there was no reason to end it. Though the book did come back 2 years later. But this series, no, it's almost like, by the way, Lady Strix, who appears in the book, is in fact, Brenda's aunt from the series Blue Beetle. I mean, Keith Giffen created her, and he basically had her disappear, and she popped up in this book, and then she somehow returned the pages of Blue Beetle, which I think that was good, given the fact she's so, I think his name was Daja Hall, I think her name is. Yes. I definitely do think that the 3000, Just Like 2000 / Just Like 2001, great series. I mean, you look at the numbering overall, this book only put out about 25 issues, which it's a pretty good number. Yep. A might ask, Nick, did this series ever produce an annual? Shockingly, no, it never did. Not that I remember, no. It never produced an annual, so it just lasted for this bunch, and that's it. At least Keith Giffen got something after this book wrapped up. He got Blue Beetle, which actually was the first time he wrote the book in over a decade. He basically was one who he was also technically the original writer on the very first volume Jaime Reyes had as the Blue Beetle. And though he left at the first story arc, he still started it. He created a lot of supporting characters for Jaime Reyes, though Jaime Reyes himself is a Jeff Johns character. Alright, moving on to a different book we have Wolverines, Volume 2, Claw, Blade, and Fang. Collecting issues 6 through 10 of the Wolverines Weekly Series. Co-written by Charles Scholl and Ray Fox. Now, Scholl does not do all the issues in here. He shockingly only does 2 of the 5 issues in here. He does issues 7 and 9. 6, 8, and 10 are done by Ray Fox. And every issue, once again, has got their own separate artists. We have Jason Masters, issue 6. Chris Aquina, 7. Juan Doe, 8. Peter Nugent and Derek Floofs, issue 9. And Jonathan Mark did issue 10. Do any of these artists do the cover? Just Juan Doe does the cover for issue number 8. Guy Major, actually, that was the colorist. The cover art is mostly done by Sam Bocci, who does this cover right here. Issue 7 is done by Nick Bradshaw, is done by Alex Gardner. So Bocci also does issue 8. Nick Bradshaw issue 9, and Chris Acuna issue 10. Mostly put for this one, we kind of pick up where we left off with the last one, where Sinestro is trying to experiment on Wolverine, and the X-Men are there, and of course Laura is asked what she's doing, and she just doesn't want to talk about it. And everything is like kind of weird stuff happening in these issues. Like, oh, let's have Shogun like being possessed by Ogun, where he ends up basically like being attacked by Lady Deathstrike, and then he ends up making out with her. And then it's later shown apparently they decided to have sex. Yes, Shogun had sex with Lady Deathstrike. And I'm like, damn, you lucky guy, you got Lady Deathstrike, one of the hottest women in the Marvel Universe, and you slept with her. Yes, and one of the most interesting things before that, we actually had Mystique transform into a guy, a male version of herself. Which, I get the fact she is a shapeshifter, and she probably can do that, but, like, since when can she transform into a male version of herself? I mean, there already is a male version of her in the comics. He's probably the brother of the evil X-Men. Yeah, at one point she's posing as Warren, who was Laura's boyfriend prior to this. And she even transformed into, of all people, Lord Northwind. I think it's like Lord Darkwind, I think his name is. He is the father of Lady Deathstrike. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see. Her father's name is Lord Darkwind. Yeah, he's the guy with a cloak over his head. Anybody thinking, who created this guy? Denny O'Neil, Larry Hama, and Claus Johnson. While in the case of Lady Deathstrike, as Yoriko, she's created by Denny O'Neil and Larry Hama. As Lady Deathstrike, she got her identity as Lady Deathstrike by Bill Manslow and Sal Buscema. The character was developed by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor Smith. Yeah. And aside from that, we also have Fang show up. And you're thinking, who the heck is Fang? He is part of the Imperial Guard. As in the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, he comes back and then he has a conversation. He takes Doc up someplace to fight a frost giant. Yes, fights a frost giant of all things. By the way, Sabretooth did this book, but he doesn't really do anything. Yeah, that's the weird thing about him. And by the way, the Shogun's team, like, we do have briefly the character Phantom Mail do briefly in the book. But a lot of the characters don't really do anything in these issues. I mean, the only characters who do is Shogun, Lady Deathstrike, Mystique, Daken, and Laura. These 5 are the only ones who do anything in these 5 issues. Yes, Daken is basically taken by Fang to take on Frost Giants, have a beer with Fang, and like even Templar grew back his arm and his eye, they takes it away. And then he goes back, and then he says, and then Laura's like, "I'll go with you next." She's like, "Sure." And of course, Fang reveals to Daken he hates all of his kids except for Laura. Laura's the only one he actually likes. Which I'm like, really, Logan? You hate all of your kids except for Laura? Why? Because she's a girl? Yeah. But in the case of this book overall, I do enjoy the artwork in here. I think the X-Men were abruptly... I thought it was kind of strange. The X-Men abruptly drop after issue 6. Yeah, they fight Mr. Sinister, and then it's like drop and do weird like stuff on this spaceship, and apparently Mystique is in charge of the team of the Wolverines who appear in this issue. Yeah, it is by far one of the most baffling things this book is basically done. Mm-hmm. Now, I do enjoy Wolverines. Yes, it is by far a really good book. It's thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah. Fang apparently was killed by a brood, but then came back to life. Yeah, he died back, and get this. And this will surprise you. He died back in 1982. And then apparently he comes back to life in like 2015. He comes back in issue 8. Yeah, it comes back like 33 years later. Yeah, somehow he's alive, and there's some explanation about him in the next one. But aside from the artwork, you can say that not a lot of stuff happens here. I mean, you can note where these following things happen. Shogun and Lady Deathstrike have sex. Fang has a beer with Daken. Mystique basically yells at the team and transforms to a guy. And various people, including Lord Darkwind. And the X-Men briefly appear, and they take care of Sinister in just the first issue. These 4 things I just named literally all happen in just these 5 issues. Because not less of happens in these issues. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give this book a 8.5 out of 10. It feels like a bit of a step down from the opening issues. Yes, that's the only problem with it. It just feels like a step down. That's just my opinion anyways. Okay, so that's it for this particular review. I might have time to do one more, but it just depends, okay? Next video. Bye.